Colin, thank you for joining me here in Lisbon, Portugal. Colin, a long friend of mine, is the VP for Century 21 for Global Operations and Worldwide Relocation, which means Colin essentially runs the world for the world's biggest real estate brand.
Sounds like a plan. I like that. Yes,
Yep.
thanks, Eddie. Great title, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, so we scoured the world for the coolest looking backdrop, and that wound us up here in
Century 21
in Lisbon.
Portugal. Yeah, it's a fantastic office.
So I have this theory as a real estate broker that's operated in the DC area since 2002 that this is probably the greatest time in history for Americans, North Americans, so we'll include Canadians and our great neighbors from Mexico that want to take the equity that is in their house and spend it elsewhere, other parts of the world where the dollar is going to translate into being able to buy more, right?
Definitely in the U.S. Absolutely.
Yes. So from your perspective, from your desk on a daily basis, you see the movement of real estate across the whole world. Like what are the trends you're seeing?
It's kind of a mixed bag on where folks are going. We're seeing Mexico is actually a great example. People moving into Mexico, obviously pretty close to the U.S., so that's easy. But yeah, here in Europe as well, you're seeing some decent trends. Portugal, Spain, Italy, about a year ago, came into the fold there as well. Seems to be a hot spot for people. Then you have areas like Cyprus and Malta, which are very pro-business. So you see some corporate relocation opportunities taking place in those markets. Actually, it's funny that we're having this conversation because literally in the last 2 days, I was connected up with an American who's looking to purchase a home either here in Lisbon or in parts of Sicily. So they need to decide which, but we've got them covered in both locations. So, I mean, perfect timing.
Yeah, you do. And interesting that they're all the places you mentioned on this side of the pond are in Southern Europe.
100%.
So I guess it's like the United States, people are moving to the sunshine.
Yeah, think about the trend of folks from Canada purchasing in Arizona, or I'm in Connecticut, so people from the Northeast moving to Florida, Arizona. It's the climate is a huge factor on that. Absolutely. Yeah. It's also interesting when you're looking at the global connectivity, and I had no idea about this, but Japan and Brazil have a big interactive relationship there. There's the whole Japanese communities in Brazil. I'm not sure if it's the other way around, but definitely coming from Japan to Brazil, it's been like that for decades.
Yeah.
What other random areas that you wouldn't necessarily think? Well, actually, one that you would think of is Asia Pacific and Canada, Vancouver, big markets, huge opportunities between India and pick a country. So it's interesting to see the dynamics of just global migration. But yes, you are seeing, to take it back to our original point here, a lot of Americans who are looking outside of the U.S. For either second homes, investment opportunities, or just to get into that warmer climate, like you were saying.
When you transitioned away from being focused just on the United States market into the global market, what were some of the biggest differences you saw in other parts of the world that surprised you?
I mean, I don't think it was a surprise, but the lack of MLS in pretty much anywhere else.
Yeah.
That makes it significantly challenging compared to the U.S., where, I mean, we just have it's down, buttoned up so tight. So in that scenario, it is difficult, and I appreciate the efforts that our Century 21 brokers in particular, do to secure listings and to work those opportunities and find properties for their customers as well.
Yeah, I remember distinctly a lot of things about. So Ricardo Sosa, the president of Century 21 in Spain and Portugal. I met him, going back probably 2015. He was touring some of our offices, and we hit it off. He invited me to speak at his conference, and just in passing, we were talking about sharing properties, and he mentioned there's no MLS, and I was like, what did you just say? And he said, there's no multiple listing service. And I said, how does the market operate? And then I was pontificating to someone else. You're not going to believe what I learned. And then I found out it's really only the United States and parts of Canada that have the MLS. And the way it's been described to me is that sort of as when you're a younger startup brokerage, you really want the MLS. And then as you get bigger, your need for the MLS is not as big because you control more of the inventory. And therefore, the U.S., our market should get a lot of credit for the fact that the biggest brokers, at least up until this point in time, have been comfortable staying within the MLS system because they realize it's so pro-consumer. But what are some of the ways that a brand like Century 21 works to leverage the lack of an MLS outside of the U.S. to their advantage?
Sure. Yeah, we have a really robust global website that all the listings across the globe, including the U.S. So we have the century21.com site where your listings for Redwood are, for example. Those actually are also on the Century 21 Global site. So it's a great avenue for people who are looking to buy in the U.S. or buy here in Portugal. They'll see all the listings that a Century 21 agent has. And it's, I think maybe one of the very few global types of sites that are out there. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, that is. And you would say to yourself, like as a U.S. consumer, you'd say, why would I want to look at a site that only has one brand, even if it's a brand with top global market share? And the reality is because there's not necessarily a better database out there. Here in Portugal and Spain, the big site for the Zillow, if you will, for looking at properties is called Idealista. But Idealista is not without challenges. The biggest annoying factor is, first of all, there's a lot of dated listings out there. So there's a lot of listings you'll find they're not even on the market.
Right.
And then the homes that are on the market, you're going to see them 3, 4, sometimes 5 different times because there is no very limited exclusive listings in there.
That was going to be my other comment. That was the biggest difference when I took on the international role, is the exclusive listing scenario that we have in the U.S. doesn't really exist pretty much anywhere else either. There are some locations that have it, but it's like, hello. So yeah, that's an interesting challenge again. People are buying and selling real estate here all day long. We bought and sold real estate in the U.S. before there was an MLS, so it gets done.
Yeah, I would love to see, and I know Ricardo has the same vision of Century 21 being, the brand here in Spain and Portugal that does exclusive listings.
I'm in on that action too. I like that idea.
I think it's great. I could tell you where the challenge is, right? The challenge is, I'm imagining. So as a real estate agent, and myself a broker for 22 plus years, I understand the magnetic nature of a listing, right? You get a listing, and you're gonna meet people from it. So I imagine there's a lot of agents that go to listing appointments, and this is all done in Spanish or Portuguese, by the way. But we're going to talk about it in English since that's how we communicate.
Thank goodness.
So on the listing, they pitch them on the exclusive nature. Hey, I want to do this exclusive. And the consumer says, no, I've already got it listed with someone else, but I'll give you a non-exclusive. And so based between the two, they go with the non-exclusive. But the challenge you have there is that there's not that rock solid agent client relationship, and nobody completely trusts anybody else. As a consumer, I've personally experienced this. There's a lack of trust oftentimes. I can attest for this in Spain, between the client and the prospective agent. Until you get that relationship there, because they're used to somebody calling multiple agents, sometimes on the same block to look at properties. So a big draw people have to a brand like Century 21 is they know that they're going to work with a top-notch professional. So how do you keep that consistency, right? Because it's not like we serve the same exact Big Mac across the entire world, right? We being Century 21, but we aim to have that experience. So what are some of the best practices that your team infers to our affiliates around the world?
this is opening up a whole door here because, and let me use this as a U.S. domestic opportunity first, and then I'll turn it into the international side. So you have a relocation director at Redwood, Tina, and if she received a referral that's coming in and they say, oh, I want to move into Virginia. Well, Virginia's a pretty big space. You also got DC there. She needs more information than just, hey, I have a buyer who's moving into Virginia. So, when you're looking at international, it's kind of that on steroids. So a lot of people, they daydream of, like, oh, I want to move to Spain or to Portugal, for example. But both those countries are large geographic countries. How about a city to start with? And then you can even break it down if the person knows it. But these are the questions that your agent or an agent who's sending an opportunity overseas, they should be asking their client. Where in Lisbon would you like to go? There's a lot of great areas. Do you like the mountains? Do you like the beach? So to get into the geographics a little bit more in detail, as well as what are the needs that you have for a home? Do you have kids? Is it 3-bedroom, 2-bath? Is it a condo? Is it a single family home? All stuff that we kind of, from the US side, we do all day long. But it's weird, as soon as you flip the switch and say it's international, it feels like people kind of forget about that. They just want to move to Portugal. Yeah. So the details, or they should say the devil's in the details, that would be, I think, one of the big starting points if you're an agent in the US who's looking or working with a client who's interested in moving overseas, to ask those very pointed questions, because that also makes you look like you're a professional, consultative real estate agent. So that would be number one for me, is to as much detail as you could possibly get before you send that referral over. The other big piece that I would also put out there, especially coming from the US side, where you're connected with an agent, if it's a referral, within minutes, right? It doesn't happen this way in other countries, and it's different between countries. So if you're an agent working with someone who's looking to purchase a property overseas, you really want to set that expectation. Hey, you know what? No problem. Give me some time to find a good agent who can take care of the needs that we just talked about. You're probably not going to hear from them tomorrow, maybe not the next day, maybe not even next week. So you really want to kind of build those expectations that buying real estate from the getting the name to an agent is different than it is in the U.S. Yep. And I'll throw this back at you, Eddie. I mean, you bought property in Spain. How was that experience for you?
Very, very different. And like every different experience, at times it was exciting. At other times it was incredibly frustrating. At times I felt like I didn't have anybody that I could trust. And I should mention that Century 21 does not have offices where I was looking, or I'm sure I wouldn't have had this issue. But absent of Century 21, I didn't find an agent that I really trusted. And I didn't find an agent that asked for my exclusive business. And I'm the type that if I go to a car dealership and I fall in love with a car, if the salesperson hasn't adequately advanced the sale with me, I'm still not going to buy with them. It drives my wife nuts, but all I've done is in my entire adult life is sales, and I'm not going to buy from a bad salesperson. And that probably caused me to waste about a year looking for homes in Spain. But when I broke down why the agents that I worked with were not advancing the sales like I am familiar with and I coach my agents to do in the United States, I think it really came down to exclusivity. They didn't trust me that I wasn't looking at properties with other agents, and therefore they were just trying to hard sell me in the homes that they had listed for sale without assuming that consultative role and just showing me properties that other companies had. And I would gladly.
So they didn't develop a relationship.
They didn't develop a relationship, and they didn't operate on a consultative basis. They operated only in an overly salesy basis, right? Okay. And it was like until I was interested in a property, they weren't interested in me. Once I showed interest in a property, they were like hitting me over the head, trying to close me, threatening that a German family was coming down this weekend with a bag of cash to buy this exact house. if I didn't act now. That's
And
a
you
true
needed to buy the
anecdote.
undercoating.
Yeah, it came by the time that it happened on the third house. I thought, who is this German family, and why don't they want my family to have a decent house? And then it dawned on me, I said, well, maybe this German family does not exist. Maybe that's just what they tell Americans who are interested in property. So what I would suggest, to that we could do that would be really cool for the Spanish market is assume a consultative role. Just work out how the exclusive right to represent agreements work, and then, show property. And it's in not very different than in the United States. If you want to buy a home with me, there's a chance that the seller might share the commission, and in which case you wouldn't know this. But in the event that they wouldn't, then my fees are this. And then once you have that agreement locked in, the agent can relax and understand that they're going to be compensated for the transaction, that their time will be compensated, and then they can assume a consultative role, show the client all the different properties that are available, and everything goes much more smoothly there because the agent and the client feel like they're operating on the same team as opposed to being opposing forces. And few things there's few more annoying opposing forces than opposing forces that are trying to do the same thing.
Oh, very good point. Eddie,
Yeah,
thank you for sharing your
Yeah.
story.
Thank you very much.
I just became the host.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. That oftentimes happens when you get interviewed by a host like myself. So you and I participated in the rebranding project that created all of this. And so that was special. That was the summer 2017. I think this might be something cool to sort of end on.
Okay.
Is just appreciating for a second. I feel it was an amazing project to be part of. It was an honor to be part of it. We've talked about this. My mindset, at least the first two meetings, was this is never going to work, right? Because it started, the ideas we were thinking, right, eat big fish, they felt so big. And the idea that we could, through a series of small and big Post-it notes, bring all of that down to rebrand a company that was known for this into something like that was just wild. And then everything sort of came to a conclusion, and we thought, wow, this was really cool. And then about a month later, they took all that information that we'd worked on over the summer and introduced this. And when I come, well, I live here now, but especially when I come to Portugal, where the brand is even bigger than it is in Spain, I just love everything that they've done with the brand here.
Yeah. And we've got the 121 Portugal conference taking place over the next few days. I hear that we're going to have a lot of visibility in the city of Lisbon. So excited to see this throughout the city. But yeah, it's really slick, and the brand needed it. Started in '72, so that, and we were rocking that '72 look for a long time. So it definitely was time, and I think it gave a new energy to the brand. And even some of my, again, I'm work on the corporate relocation side. Some of our corporate relocation clients have stated, wow, Century 21's kind of really upped their game over the last several years since we've done this. So it's exciting that it's being recognized, quite frankly. So yeah, it was fun working with you on that project.
It was fun. All right, my man. All right, well, we have a great week in store.
Right on, boss.
Thanks, buddy.